Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. Rangers lose again at home, this time 4-1 in the Tampa Bay Lightning, and just another embarrassing effort, dispiriting performance by the New York Rangers, where they only get 13 shots on goal, only 2 in the first, 4 in the third. Just absolutely pathetic against a Lightning team that there was every reason to beat this Tampa Bay Lightning team, as I laid out in the previous episode against the Bruins, where Tampa Bay, look, everything worked out for the Rangers from just a roster perspective, where it ended up being Igor Shesterkin versus Johansson, the backup for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jonas Johansson. So you had that going for you. Will Borgen returned to the lineup, so that helps. Scott Morrow was out, and for Tampa, all of those players that were discussed were out. No Hedman, no McDonough, no Chernak. I mean, those are 3 top 4 pieces, major pieces on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Braden Point, who has struggled this year, but Braden Point, he was out as well. And I know that Tampa's had success, right? I understand that they've played well with basically this crew, but they were coming off of a game yesterday as well, which they won against Detroit. Like, there is no excuse, especially the way this was. You could tell right from the beginning, the Rangers just didn't have it at all. And this has happened way too many times. It's a terrible characteristic of this team. You know, there's just not enough hate to lose in this team. You know, it kind of comes in waves. Certain games, you know, they'll be engaged, and a lot of games they aren't. And they're not nearly good enough. You know, certain teams can't get away with that. This team can't. And I think matters worse, Adam Fox leaves the game with an upper body injury in the third period. If he's out for any length of time, this team is severely fucked. I mean, there's just no way around it. He has been playing well, leaves the game with about 13 minutes left in the third, ironically on a hit from Brandon Hagel, who had left the last game the Rangers played in Tampa when he was hit high from, I believe it was Carson Soucy. So, look to be a shoulder injury for Fox. Really hoping it's nothing significant, because again, if he is going to be out, let's say it is an injury that keeps him sidelined, let's say anywhere from like a 6 to 10 week period. And maybe that's on the upper end of things, right? Maybe it won't be that bad, but I don't know how they recover from that. And I thought, and for Fox, I just hope that for his own individual sake, you know, with the Olympics coming up this year, I hope that he's healthy by then, you know, but that's another story. But it just adds to what was just a disastrous game at Madison Square Garden. Just, you know, the home performances have just been absolutely asinine from this team. 2-8-1 at home now, compared to 11-4-1 on the road. Again, I still believe that, you know, it's not even really worth it, but I think the home record is a little more indicative of what this team is than the road record. Again, I want to be wrong, but I don't see this as a playoff team. When you see games like this and it's fairly consistent, it's hard to believe that, because the wins, like the Bruin win, that was nothing special. Sure, give them credit for mostly dominating. Even in that one, they slipped up a little bit, but still, whatever. Like, that was, you took advantage of an obvious mismatch. But yeah, like, the wins to me, not to take anything away from it, some of them have been good. They have, but like, the losses have just been absolutely ugly and just indefensible. And, you know, it doesn't matter what head coach you bring in. It's just a part of the DNA of this team, and they're trying to change it. And it's just hard to believe that they will. I think that this core is going to have to be gutted as much as it can possibly be. You're not going to be able to fully gut it, but as much as you can. And I don't mean to talk so big picture, but it's hard not to in performance like this. And I understand if we want to make excuses, we can talk about, look, it's Thanksgiving weekend. Although, look, Tampa was in the same situation, but you go home and you kind of settle in. They were on the road for a while. It does happen, but it's just excuse making. I mean, MSG, this is a total stretch. So I'm saying that flat out. Again, I will be as critical on this team as anyone, but I don't know. This team has no speed. You combine that with MSG, which really doesn't have the best ice in the league. It really doesn't, with all the events and things like that. And that's a bad combination too. Because I think it's an effort issue, but I'm also trying to look at this logically and say, hey, is there something more to it than that? Because it's just so bad. And they get really, it's funny. For a while, they were kind of, you can argue, snake bitten and playing like a pretty good brand of hockey. And that's totally at home. Let's just keep it for the home games, right? I think about that Washington loss, the Edmonton loss. There may have been one other. But those are the two that really come to mind where it's like they really actually played well, but just, kind of lack of talent got the best of them. Now it's like the other way where they are getting absolutely destroyed. I mean, you think about the Tampa Bay game, the Detroit game, the Islander game. I'll put the Minnesota game in that category as well, just to name a few. And so your only two home wins are against Nashville and St. Louis. And if Adam Fox is out, that's the level that you're on at that point. Seriously, you lose Adam Fox, you are on truly, because even with him at times, I wonder whether they are kind of in that sort of bottom five-ish type level. And maybe that's a little bit unfair, right? It's probably not that bad. But if he is out, it is that bad. So it's hard not to think about that as we discuss this game. And I'm hoping, look, I want this Rangers season to be, look, it's not a very entertaining team, but I don't want it to kind of go off the rails as I've feared. But if it's due to like an Adam Fox injury like that, it would suck. It would, just from a viewing perspective. But like I said, I kind of discussed at the top the roster and how Will Borgen was back. Didn't look so good today. And look, not going to be too tough on him because, look, he was out for a while. First game back, give him a pass. But didn't think he looked great. Even he really had looked very, very good before he went down with an injury. But, it should have shored things up a bit on the defensive side of things. Again, they go with Igor, who was good. I mean, Shesterkin really, the worst thing he did was really an egregious penalty at the end of the second period by Shesterkin. That was the dumbest and worst thing by far. Just as far as his play at net was really excellent. Gave the Rangers a chance. I had no problem with any of the goals he allowed. Again, it was that penalty which we'll talk about. That was just not smart. And then for the forward units, it was the same. And look, I think logically, and not going to be a big deal about this, but Connor Sherry's probably back in the lineup next game. It's just, the way it's going to be. As far as initial guesses, as far as who's the one that sits, I'll go with Edstrom. I think Edstrom will be the guy in this situation that would maybe be the one that sits. I think they want to try to get, Berard, wasn't great. And really no one was really good in this game, but I think that it would be Edstrom. Don't be surprised. And again, it's a very inconsequential sort of swap, really is. So yeah, like I said, right from the outset, Lightning completely dominated. I mean, the shot counts were insane. At one point, I think it might have been 10-0. It was just crazy. Really, just not right. Real. And, but they were hanging in there, thanks to Shesterkin and whatever else. It was scoreless for a while. It was. But then at 10:53, Brandon Hagel, who's been amazing for the Lightning, scores his 14th goal of the season, assisted by Darren Radish and Kucherov. So Darren Radish, the older brother of Ranger Taylor Radish, and Darren Radish was in the Ranger organization for a few years on the Hartford Wolfpack, I believe, for parts of 3 seasons. So bit of a late bloomer who has really blossomed with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, that goal gives the Lightning a 1-0 lead. And it's a play where Soucy gets out of the zone barely. Zibanejad kind of loses the battle near the defensive blue line. And, Hagel kind of just puts the pressure on him. Kucherov gets the puck with a little bit of space, goes to the middle of the ice. A couple Rangers trail him. Quick pass by Radish. Hagel takes the shot, and it goes in off the skate of Carson Soucy. So Hagel just, the Lightning had deserved to score by then, and that's the way it goes down, right? Shot by Hagel, in off of Soucy, past Shesterkin, gives the Lightning 1-0 lead. Rangers do get a power play at 15:48. Artemi Panarin is slashed, and, Ranger power play doesn't score there. Here's the problem. Ranger power play has actually not been bad lately. I haven't really given them maybe the credit that they kind of deserve. It's been better from a success rate. They just don't draw. I mean, it's a problem with this team. The way that they play, their lack of speed, lack of possessing the puck, it leads to situations where they don't draw penalties. It's just a really, really bad feature of this team. And so with that, it puts you in a situation where you're not going to have many 5-on-4 opportunities. So the score remains 1-0 after one, which was really fortunate. They should have been, down by a lot more than that. Second period wasn't a whole lot better. Was it better a little bit? Yeah, the second half of the second was better. Not nearly good enough for how bad the first is. They should have been playing with their fucking hair on fire, and they were not. They were not. They were still going through the motions. It just wasn't quite as much of a slop as the first period was. But yet again, not yet again. Matthew Robertson holds Dominic James at 416. Rangers kill that off the power play. But then at 8:57, Brandon Hagel scores again. His 15th goal of the season, assisted by Kucherov and Radish. So the same combination as we saw for that first goal for the Lightning. And, Lafreniere has an opportunity, I think, for a 3-on-2, I believe. Maybe not 3-on-2, maybe 3-on-3, but just dumps it in. And for Lafreniere, you see that too much. Yeah, sure, it's not necessarily a high-risk play. Well, that's kind of the problem, weirdly, here, is that he just looks very, very ordinary at best a lot of times. Where is the skill, the tool set? It exists. We've seen it before, but just so often, Alexis Lafreniere just looks like a very ordinary player. And it's just, he's at the point in his career where he's just not, he doesn't make the right decision nearly enough, not very responsible in the defensive zone. And it leads to a player that really kind of ends up being more of a negative than a positive. And it's a quick, good play by Johansson to get it to Radish, who beats JT Miller, and a nice quick pass by Kucherov to Hagel, who goes in on a breakaway. The initial stop by Shesterkin is made, but then he whacks away 2 times and scores. That's embarrassing to have basically a mini breakaway where he is stopped and then gets his own rebound twice and scores. And it was not a great change by Carson Soucy. It put Gavrikov in a tough spot, and Borgen gets beat by Hagel, and Gavrikov couldn't get back in time. So I don't know what Carson Soucy was thinking. Not a great game for Carson Soucy, but it all kind of starts with the Lafreniere dump in, and again, not a great game, although they end up scoring the goal. It's interesting. This line is kind of on for the 2 against, and then they get the 1 goal. So that goal, surprised they even scored in this game. I thought the Rangers would be shut out, but JT Miller, the goals he scores are ugly. There's not a whole lot of skill in them this year. It's been right in front of that, and some of them have gone up the skate, deflections. It's just the way it's been. Hey, give him credit for going to the dirty areas. So, I can't talk much on the JT Miller front in this game, but again, still need to see more from him. But he does get the 1 goal, scores against his former team, 7th goal of the season, assisted by Fox and Zibanejad. And that's the thing. Fox is one of the few guys that can create. And again, if you lose him, it's bad. So it's a play where credit goes to everyone on the ice. Lafreniere with a nice, puck possession, gets it to Zibanejad, passes to Fox at the right side, makes a little bit of a move, and Miller crashed to the net. It goes off his skate and in. Legal goal, no kicking motion or anything like that, and it cuts it to 2-1. And then, unfortunately, the Lightning do, yet again, have the momentum again. You think, okay, Rangers make it 2-1, and maybe the next shift the Rangers had a chance. But by the end of the period, Lightning are kind of buzzing around, and Igor, I understand why he felt like he needed to, but it just was not smart. At 1941, he interferes with Brandon Hagel. It was the right call. Just, you gotta stay in place and just hope that you keep to the outside and you survive that period. That was important. And here's what happens. And we've talked about the importance of late period goals and early ones. And the Rangers kind of had a late one in the second, but then they take that penalty. They actually kill it off, but really not even, let's see, what's the count on this? Let's call it about 20 seconds after it expires. The Lightning never lost possession. It went out of the zone, but I still can count this as sort of a continuation of that power play in a way, where, again, to me, just not a smart penalty by Igor, and then just too loose of defense in the defensive zone, where Nick Paul scores his 2nd goal of the season, assisted by Kucherov and Deastus. Hope I'm saying that right. Probably not. He's one of the defensemen for the Lightning, I believe, and kind of this crew that is getting it done. But yeah, it's one of those things where just too much room. Kucherov kind of, setting up shop in that right corner to the left of Igor. and Nick Paul's just too open in front. Rangers were making a line change, and so they weren't quite set. Susi, again, giving Kucherov a little too much room, and then Gavrikov giving Nick Paul too much room. Easy tap in for Nick Paul. Makes it 3-1. And a Rangers team that's already mentally fragile was not coming back from this game, from a 2-goal deficit at that point. Just wasn't happening. They don't really do it normally. They're not good. I mean, especially at home, when they're trailing in the third period, they don't even really get, it's some of their worst periods. It's insane. I've talked about that. They have bad third periods, especially when they're losing, and especially at home. So that makes it 3-1. You do get a power play where Gonzalez holds the stick of Taylor Radish at 11:56. Radish actually had an opportunity shorthanded earlier where he wasn't able to get a shot off, where, it would have been nice if he did. And I think they were down by 1 at that point. But yeah, Rangers get this power play in the third. At this point, Adam Fox is out of the game. So they went with a 5-man forward unit. So Will Cooley would join in place of Fox. So it changes things. They weren't going to, and I don't blame them. They didn't feel comfortable putting Braden Schneider out there. It shows you where they're at, where if Fox isn't playing, the next best option is just going all forwards. And yeah, Rangers don't score on that power play. They pull the goalie eventually. And the Lightning get an empty net goal. Jake Gansopis, of course, against the Rangers. You knew he wasn't going to not score. Gets an empty net goal, 14th goal of the season, assisted by Yanni Gourde and Darren Radish. So it's a 3-point game for Radish. 3-point game. Kucherov, 2 goals for Hagel. Lightning win 4-1. Lightning outshoot the Rangers 35-13. Just a real dispiriting, embarrassing, ugly performance at Madison Square Garden for the Rangers. And where I thought, hey, if they can win this game, and don't lose sight of, I know the Lightning have been a very good team for years. I know that they're on a big winning streak. Look, they are going to be one of the better teams coming out of the East for sure, no question. But this was a team that had every reason to, if you're a Lightning fan, I think going into this, it's hey, if you lose this one, you lose this one. They're on a 6-game winning streak going in. Vasilevsky's not in net, and look. And key defensemen are out, plus Braden Point. And Lightning won handily. So this qualifies as a really, really bad loss to the Rangers, and one where, look, they could have made up their 4-game losing streak with a 4-game winning streak. And now what do you have on your hands? A really, really tough schedule. A really tough one. The next 4 games, home against Dallas, at Ottawa, and then a back-to-back home against Colorado and Vegas. Good luck. Good luck with that. That's why this game was important. And if Adam Fox, again, if he is going to be out, I know that in previous times, I guess I'm thinking specifically 2 seasons ago when Fox was out, they were able to make it work, but that was different. That was a better team. Surprisingly, they really did do well. They excelled when he was out, surprisingly. I don't see that same fate here. I really, really don't. I talked about how when Will Borgen was out, how you're really one defenseman short. And now with it being potentially Fox and what he brings, it just kind of I don't know how you do it. Because as it was, the back end didn't really have a whole lot of offensive juice. And then now it's going to have even less. So hoping for kind of some positive news where it's not as bad as it seems like it could be, but not feeling overly optimistic. So yeah, Rangers dropped to 13-12-2. Not a very good record overall. 2-8-1 at home. And they're going to play a lot at home in December. They're really going to have to turn things around in Madison Square Garden. There's no choice now. They're not going on the road a whole lot. So we'll see what happens. Dallas Stars come to town. That's a good team. That's a really good team. They're 16-5-4. They're 9-1-3 on the road. This is the goods. I mean, we talk about Colorado. After that, you could really make the argument, and probably just is the case. Dallas is probably the second best team in the National Hockey League. It's a big second behind Colorado, but they are. And like I said, they're really good on the road. So, could be problems ahead for the Rangers. So again, Thanksgiving weekend, just another absolute dog shit performance by the Rangers at Madison Square Garden, losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 4-1.